Here's what's coming up in the Category 5.tv newsroom. Hackers are now turning to in-store kiosks to have your SIM card swapped so that they can access two-factor authentication on your accounts. A security plugin for the Firefox browser is under fire after users discovered it was collecting and uploading their online activity. Linux 4.18 is now available after a number of well-documented hiccups. And you're not the only one feeling run down by the news of the day. The folks at Google apparently believe we could all use a dose of good news times 2. The company has announced it is testing a new Google Assistant feature called Tell Me Something Good that will allow users to hear a summary of more uplifting news stories. Stick around, the full details are coming up later in the show.
Jeff Weston,
Yeah, man.
you're building a brand new beautiful website,
What?
aren't you?
No. Am I?
Oh, you're a terrible actor.
What?
This is where acting comes into play.
Oh, I didn't know we were acting.
You're supposed to act.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Yeah, I'm building a really cool website. Are you building a really cool website? Just because Jeff is confused doesn't mean you have to be. Visit cat5.tv/dreamhost to sign up for unlimited web hosting for your website with unlimited email accounts, MySQL databases, the latest version of PHP, WordPress, and more, and even a free domain name registration. It's less than $6 per month, so sign up today. cat5.tv/dreamhost.
This is the Category 5.tv newsroom, covering the week's top tech stories with a slight Linux bias.
I'm Sasha Rickman, and here are the top stories we're following this week. A Bitcoin investor is suing at&t for $240 million after it allegedly ported his phone number to a hacker, allowing the criminal to steal $24 million in cryptocurrency. Michael Turpin is suing the phone giant for the value of the 3 million electronic coins plus $216 million in punitive damages after he claims an at&t employee at a store in Connecticut agreed in person to transfer his personal phone number to a new SIM card despite the account having a high-risk protection following an earlier hacking effort. The anonymous hacker then used his access to Turpin's phone number to bypass security on his cryptocurrency accounts thanks to two-factor authentication sent by text, and transferred millions of dollars to a different account, an approach known as SIM swap fraud. Turpin claims at&t admitted to him that the employee in question agreed to shift the SIM card despite the security requirement that they ask for a valid form of ID and having ignored an additional VIP requirement that they provide a special 6-digit passcode before changes are allowed on the account. That 6-digit extra security step was introduced after Turpin says his account had been targeted and hacked 6 months earlier through the same approach. That time, he says, a hacker made no less than 11 in-store attempts to steal his SIM information before finally succeeding. On both occasions, the first Turpin knew of the hack was when his phone went dead. The second time, he says he knew instantly what had happened and immediately tried to contact at&t to shut the phone down, but it was stymied by the fact that it was a Sunday and at&t's fraud department apparently does not work on Sundays. By the time he regained access, $23.8 million in Bitcoin had gone missing. By failing to follow procedures and giving the extra security on his accounts, Turpin claims that at&t had broken multiple laws and lists no less than 16 claims for relief, ranging from negligence to breach of contract to insufficient security and providing unlawful access to personal information. at&t, for its part, has promised to fight the lawsuit. A representative said, "We dispute these allegations and look forward to presenting our case in court."
Come on now.
at&t has a lot of money. So if they're fighting in court, this poor Turpin guy is going to be out all of his millions of Bitcoin.
We got a big problem here in this world right now because a company like at&t may not look at cryptocurrency as a commodity.
Right.
So, you know, you should have protected yourself. There are so many problems with this. Now, first of all, we're giving the benefit of the doubt to the person who has had this happen to him.
Right.
Of course, it in itself could be fraud, right?
That's
saying,
true too.
oh, somebody stole my SIM card and blah, blah, blah. That could be fraud. But we're giving him the benefit of the doubt and saying, okay, well, let's just say that the news story is correct and this actually happened in the way that he described, which could happen. Then we've got a few problems with AT&T. First of all, we know that their staff, those who are working at the kiosks, are not necessarily trained in anti-fraud.
Right.
And if that's the case, why are there not things in place that say, okay, this person is subscribed to our ultimate security package?
Right.
Nobody, absolutely nobody who works for us is able to make any changes to that account without true authentication.
Right.
First of all, we know that the ID is a factor. Right?
Yes.
So think about that. Hold that in the back of your mind for a moment. But why is an employee able to circumvent the requirement that is put in place? Think about that for a moment.
Right.
Okay. So we live in a world of entitlement. People are entitled and they feel entitled, and staff are taught that the customer's always right. Okay. So in this world, we also live in a world that is very well versed at how to use social engineering in order to control those who are on the receiving end. So social engineering is able to trick the victim into providing something that is giving that person information that can be used to then trick the employee into believing that they are the person.
Right.
Right? Social engineering can also be used on the flip side with the AT&T employee, remembering that we live in a world of entitlement, and we live in a world where AT&T employees are taught the customer's right.
Right.
And I walk in and my phone's been stolen. I need you to cancel that SIM card immediately. I don't have my wallet. Like, come on. Like, let's make this happen. Like, this has to happen now.
Right.
Okay, sorry, sir. Okay, let's see what. Okay, let me see how I can help. Right. The employee is a victim as well. All right.
Yes.
So AT&T, the company, obviously doesn't have something in place that access denied.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm trying to override it, but I can't. The message on my screen says, first of all, now, had I, as the AT&T employee, had training in anti-fraud, I'd say, okay, hold on one second, sir. I'm just going to pick up the phone and I'm just going to call the number for this smartphone. Okay. Okay, I've got an answer. Hello. Okay. What's the answer to your security question? Okay, the guy standing here before me didn't know that answer. What's this and that, right?
Right.
Okay, there's something going on here. I need to push that button under the desk. That's, had I had anti-fraud training, I would have known to do that. That's obviously, that doesn't sound like the case here. So, but had AT&T had something in place that says, no, you're not allowed to override this. It's not possible for the staff member, who could also be in on it, to override this, then it never could have happened. So AT&T is liable. Don't kid yourself.
Right. They certainly are. But is it true that they also don't have fraud prevention on 24/7?
I don't.
That seems weird.
I mean, it must be because you said it, right?
That's weird.
Yeah.
Right? In a world where fraud can happen at any point in the day.
I think what it comes down to is, like, kiosks and stores are extensions of the actual company. When you go in and you order a service, they pick up the phone and they dial into the head office and they order that service on your behalf and set it up with head office, and really they're just an extension or a third party in a way, right? So they should not have the power to do what they did. They should have better training when it comes to anti-fraud, but that's not an end-all be-all, because you could still have a malicious party working for you.
Right.
They should have something in place that says, no, there is a process. This person had the ultimate security package, And yet the process could be overridden by a minion, if you will, somebody who works at the kiosk in the mall. How is that possible? There is a definite failure there on AT&T's part.
Yeah. Turpin, you have a fight to fight, but you're going to win.
Regardless, I mean, regardless of being on his side or not on his side, the company needs to realize that this cannot happen. Mm-hmm. This cannot be possible to happen. Taking it to, so completely away from the AT&T side, had I realized that my phone, which I use for two-factor authentication, was missing or had gone dead,
right,
his first step should not have been to call AT&T. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He should have been logging into all of his services. No, I guess he couldn't. Two-factor authentication wouldn't allow him to log into his services.
Right.
Hopefully those services would have a way to notify. Install ESET mobile security, which has anti-theft. That wouldn't work either. If your phone was stolen, it would. Oh, this is a real dilly.
So that
it all comes down to AT&T. There's nothing he could have done better.
That's a heartbreak. A security plugin for the Firefox browser is under fire after users discovered it was collecting and uploading their online activity. The outcry began after Mozilla featured the web security extension on its blog with a post titled "Make Your Firefox Browser a Privacy Superpower." The plugin, developed by German company Creative Software Solution, bills itself as a tool for blocking malicious pages and phishing sites. It also, allegedly, logs what web pages the user visits. Shortly after the post went up, uBlock Origin developer Raymond Hill noticed that the plugin was gathering and transmitting the address of visited websites to a server in Germany. Word got back to Mozilla, and the org moved to strike the link to web security from its blog and investigate the matter. The reference to the extension has been removed from the blog post as part of the investigative process. The developer of the plugin, Creative Software Solutions Managing Director Fabian Simon, says that the collection of browsing information is only done to check a site against web security's global blacklist. He says his company does not know why Mozilla pulled the link to web security, but Creative plans to submit an updated version of the extension for review to prove that it is not doing anything untoward.
Untoward or not, you're not doing it right.
Right, well...
That makes me indignant.
Okay, so this is obviously not how security should work, but I don't exactly know the answer of how it should. I mean, obviously you can collect your information and send it, right?
Hashes, checksums.
Right.
You know, like the information that I'm entering into my browser should not be transmitted in any form that's readable by a server. So they're saying, okay, if you visit a website, your computer now needs to notify our server of that website that you're visiting so that we can then send a response whether or not it's compromised or safe. Right? That would be the theory.
Right.
So that's what they're saying. Okay, well, your computer has to send us that website address so that we can then respond with
whether
a yay
or not
nay.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No. No. If you've got a blacklist, so if the service provider has a blacklist, they can have checksums. So they create an algorithm.
Right.
An algorithm that creates checksums for those web domains that it knows are bad.
Right.
Okay. And then your computer, the plugin, creates a checksum based on the site that you're visiting and compares checksums.
Right.
And in such a way that you're not even sending the checksum to that host server, because then they can reverse engineer the checksum that you sent and see where you've been.
Which, yeah, it's your private activity. You should not have to send it anywhere.
I run NEMS Linux,
right,
as we all know. And one of the issues that I ran into, not an issue, one of the challenges that I faced, because my users wanted to have encrypted offsite backup service. Offsite backup service is what they wanted. I knew it had to be encrypted because I didn't want anyone being able to steal their data.
Right.
But I also don't personally want access to their data. How do I do that? I want them to be able to access their data, but I do not want access to their data. If I decided to go rogue and access this data. I don't want to be able to do that.
Right. Right.
That's how good programming is done. So without getting into the intricacies of NEM's offsite backup service, the checksum is created on their server, and the checksum is shared with our server. The encryption is created on their server. The decryption key is not shared with our server.
Right.
So my server now has the checksum, which it associates with the user account. So I do have an association, and I can cross-check whether it's a website address or a user's account information. They're associated.
Right.
But the files, the data, the information is not accessible. So get a checksum, upload it to the server for the plugin. The server says, okay, this checksum matches this, send it back.
Right.
Now my computer gets that checksum response and decrypts it using the key that is only available on my computer and not on the hosting server. So there are all kinds of ways to do this without sending information that's private. And we live in a world where there's technology that's way beyond me. I'm basic by the terms of what's available out there.
So this creative security solutions company is just kind of kindergarten in their approach because they believe what they're doing is right.
Yeah.
That's why they're saying,
Oh,
hey,
well,
no,
we
we'll
need
just
to know
show
the
you.
URLs.
Yeah, we'll just show you another one, and you'll see that we didn't really mean anything by it, right? So they don't mean maliciousness in their actions, but it's not
Their
smart.
intent is
their intent
okay.
is pure, I would
But
assume.
their programmatic approach to security is moot.
Right. So Firefox just trusted this and threw it up on the
Unfortunately,
site?
yes.
Yeah.
Which can happen.
Right.
I mean, we're looking at, a
And then-
plugin repository, and hey, here's a cool looking plugin. Let's feature it. Let's talk about it.
Right.
Somebody could feature NEM's Linux, and they don't know the inner workings or the underlying code of how it works.
Right.
Somebody says to me, why is it touching GitHub every 5 minutes? And so somebody would say, well, why is it touching GitHub every 5 minutes? So I explained. We use GitHub for our update system, and so your system actually checks with GitHub whether or not it's responding. If it's not responding, it doesn't do any updates. If it is responding, you get your updates.
Right.
But it has to check.
But thank goodness there are people out there that are
Doesn't
asking
send any
those
information.
questions.
Doesn't
right?
send any information.
Right.
Keep that in mind.
So there are people out there checking, hopefully everything, always.
That's it, but not always the case.
Yeah.
Open source is the way to go.
Exactly.
Yeah. You got more for me?
I do have more for you.
Nice.
Yes. After a number of well-documented hiccups, Linux 4.18 is now available. The release includes a raft of new toys, including support for the Snapdragon 845 chipset found in high-end mobile phones and a small number of Windows 10 laptops. The inclusion should mean that the normal "I'll wipe that and install Linux" comment that follows many a hardware review can now be applied to Microsoft's latest and greatest ARM-based devices too. Other notable enhancements include support for the Raspberry Pi 3B and 3B Plus computers, along with some early work on upcoming AMD and Intel graphic chipsets in the form of Vega 20 and Ice Lake 11 chips, respectively. The gift that keeps on giving, Spectre, also gets some attention with mitigations for the V4 variant on 64-bit ARM architectures and V1, V2 mitigations on aging 32-bit ARM hardware. Other hardware, such as USB 3.2 and Type-C, also see improvements, plus new support for a wider array of sound chips.
I don't know how Linus does it. I mean, come on.
Yay.
So Linux, of course,
Yeah.
is an alternate to Windows. Linux, the kernel, which is what we're talking about here with 4.18, is taking Linux to the next level and making it so that it's available on more platforms. Always
Good.
improving. Open source
Yeah.
wins again. And the community for Linux itself is huge. And people find ways to make it work better, make it work on other architectures, make it work on new platforms. And they patch Linux's kernel, and then Linus Torvalds, he looks at it, reviews the code, and approves the pull requests and releases the final product. And so it's a real collaborative effort. And it's what we're using.
Yeah.
Works great.
What a good community.
Yeah.
Love it. You're not the only one feeling run down by the news of the day. The folks at Google apparently believe we could all use a dose of good news at times, too. The company has announced it is testing a new Google Assistant feature called Tell Me Something Good that will allow users to hear a summary of more uplifting news stories. Google says the stories will focus on people who are solving problems for our communities and our world. To activate the feature, Assistant users in the U.S. can say, "Hey Google, tell me something good," to kick off the daily briefing of happy stories. Google offers some examples of what the good news may include, like a story about how Georgia State University stopped students from slipping through the cracks, or how backyard beekeepers in East Detroit are bringing back the dwindling bee population, or how Iceland curbed teen drinking. The stories are selected and summarized by the nonpartisan nonprofit Solutions Journalism Network, an organization that helps train journalists to better cover how people are responding to problems and how those actions can have positive results. The stories themselves, meanwhile, will be chosen from a wide range of media outlets. Google acknowledges this feature won't be some sort of magic bullet, but the company says it's an experiment worth trying because it's good info about good work that may bring some good to your day. The Google Assistant feature works on any Assistant-enabled devices, including mobile phones, smart displays, or Google Home devices.
But I understand it's only in America.
It turns out it's only in America. So I read this, right? And
America, you need good news today.
I know. So I get in my car, which I hook up to my phone, and then I have Google everything, right?
Yes.
And so I ask my car, I just press a little button. I'm like, tell me something good. And it said to me, "I'm sorry, something good does not exist in your area."
Oh,
or your region.
sad.
Your region. Yeah, I am.
Sad. Give it a try on your phone. See how it works. I think it's a great concept.
Yes.
And it kind of plays into. Remember how Facebook was manipulating people?
Right.
So that's the dark side of this, where they're posting specific stories to manipulate the global mood.
Right.
Where here it's a choice to, hey, you know what? I don't want to hear what media is giving me. I want to hear what is uplifting. I want to hear what's good in the world today.
Okay, yeah.
There's a lot of good folks.
So here's the thing. You may have noticed, am a, glass half full sort of person. I don't like to watch the news in the morning because, and I understand that tragedies do need to be reported upon, but I don't want to start the day thinking about all of the ills of this world. I want to help everyone. I don't not care about you. I'm drinking my coffee and I want to be lifted, right? I need this good news thing to work now.
There needs to be balance, I think, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like, we need information, but we live in such an information overload right now. And when that information overload is skewed toward the negative, because that's what sells news ad space. I don't know what's the phrase now. You can't say sells newspapers.
That's true.
Because nothing sells newspapers anymore.
Sells attention. I don't know.
So what makes you click on the
clickbait,
website?
That's it. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
we need balance.
It's true, because if you were to just randomly poll people out there after watching regular news or listening to regular news, they would probably give you a pretty negative,
pretty glum outlook on the world. And that affects our mood. I mean, if you have a bad start to your day.
Yeah. It's not true. There are so many good people out there. I mean, I had a patient call me. I work at a chiropractic clinic, and she said, "I'm going to be late for my appointment. I can't even get out of bed. But don't worry, my neighbor is going to come over and help me get up. I will be there." That is newsworthy, right? It's newsworthy that somebody out there came over to someone else's house and helped them, I think. Because it's so rarely reported on, and it happens all the time.
Or at least give us something that motivates us to want to be that person.
Exactly.
Because when I start the day and I turn on the news, give me the news, but give me a little positive piece that's going to uplift me.
Yeah.
I know it sounds cliche and cheesy.
Right.
But I think
But you can tell the same news story in a positive way, right? So, for example, the beekeepers in Detroit, right? You could have a news story that says, "Bad, the bees are dying," which is sad and true. But you could do that. Or you could say, "Listen, the bees are getting a helping hand and a chance at life because there's these people who are fighting against the bad.
And so then by taking that good news approach, do you think people would say, oh, wonder if I could do that?
Right.
That sounds like something I could do.
Exactly.
Here in Barrie.
Exactly.
I could have a beehive.
How hard could it be?
Yeah. But
Okay. So, big thanks to Roy W. Nash and our community of viewers for submitting stories to us this week. Thanks for watching the Category 5.tv newsroom. Don't forget to like and subscribe for all your tech news with a slight Linux bias. And for more free content, be sure to check out our website. From the Category 5.tv newsroom, I'm Sasha Rickman.
And I'm Robbie Ferguson. It's been great having you here this week. And we look forward to seeing you again, same time next week.
That's right.
Take care, everybody.